Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Cultured Pull List. This week we'll be talking about Batman and the Joker, Deadly Duo, a Black Label DC Comics story from writer and artist Marc Silvestri. I'm also going to be talking about some new comics coming from Marvel and DC this spring and summer, so be sure to stick around for that. And without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cultured Pull List, part of the Cultured Universe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mike. Today, we're talking about Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo, a Black Label DC Comics miniseries that came out a couple years ago. I've had my eye on this book for a while, but I finally got around to reading it for the show. Also, I forgot to mention last episode that this is going to be Batman month on the show. For this season, pretty much every month is going to have a theme, usually a character or maybe, some other thing like a story arc or artist or writer or something. But yeah, this month is Batman month. And you might be asking why. Well, really, a large reason is because Batman Hush 2 is coming out soon. It's starting with Batman 158, which is coming out on March 26th, I believe. And you may be saying, well, that's a couple months away. Why are you doing Batman month this month? And I might say, shut up. No, I'm kidding, but really I'm doing this early because March is when Daredevil Born Again is coming out. So March is going to be Daredevil month. So I kind of wanted to get Batman month out of the way. Plus, what better way to start the year than Batman, you know? So mostly this month, I've been covering stories that I've, wanted to cover on the show for a while. So last episode was Batman Damned. Now we're doing this series, which I've wanted to do for a while. Now, before we get into that, there is a handful of new comic series and one-shots that are coming out that I want to cover. So let's get into that. So for DC, there's this new Superman series coming out called Superman Unlimited, and it's going to be written by Dan Slott, who is probably most famous for working on Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man specifically for Marvel, but now he's doing a new Superman series with artist Raphael Albuquerque. And this is going to kick off in May. Issue 1's coming in May 21st, and there's going to be a free comic book day, 10-page zero issue. That's going to be like a prologue of the series, and that's coming out on Free Comic Book Day on May 3rd. And this series is going to start out with a really kind of an interesting concept, I think. It's going to start out with a bunch of kryptonite falling to Earth, so now a bunch of Superman's, honestly, kind of any criminal can now get their hands on kryptonite. So Superman, kind of has to watch himself even when he's, thwarting a bank robbery or something. So that'll be interesting to see there. Now, DC is launching this thing called, this new, short initiative called the Summer of Superman. It's meant to coincide with James Gunn's Superman movie coming out in July. But what's interesting is most of these books are coming out in April. So I'm not sure why they're starting so early. But anyway, so it's starting out with Summer of Superman Special number 1. Which is going to be written by several different Superman writers. We have Mark Waid, Joshua Williamson, and Dan Slott. And all of them are going to collaborate to write this 3-part story that goes throughout the whole one-shot. And Jorge Jimenez is going to do the art, which is awesome. I love his art. I've been loving his work in the current Batman series. Then we also have Superman. That special is releasing on April 16th. Then we have Superman number 25, which is going to be this extra large event issue, and it's going to kind of be the culmination of the Joshua Williamson Superman series that's been going on for the last couple years now. So that's bound to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. I've been following that series, and it's been really awesome. and that's supposed to hit stores on April 23rd. Now, Superman the World is a one shot that's going to be coming out on June 24th, and it's very similar to Batman the World that came out a couple years ago, and it's basically a collection of a bunch of different stories from artists, comic creators around the world. So it's kind of a celebration of Superman across the globe all in one book, which sounds pretty cool. I like that idea. I haven't read Batman the World, but maybe I will in preparation for this. I think there's another The World, but I forget which one it is. Then in July, which is the only book that's coming out in July, is this book called Superman's Good Guy Gang, and it's part of graphic novels that are being made for early readers. But what's interesting about this is that both Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner are in it. And I feel like that can't be a coincidence because Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner are going to be in the new Superman movie. So they like to do that sometimes with comics when a new movie's coming out. They kind of like put in characters in the current, in like in some sort of current series that are in the new movie, whether they're like actually tied together in the comics that much or not. And then this is actually coming out kind of earlier than some of the others, but April 9th, Action Comics 1085 is coming out, and that's going to end the Superman All Stars initiative they've been doing in that comic, which is like every, like few issues, a new writing and art team is coming in. So I guess that's ending on April 9th, but that's all the Summer of Superman stuff. Some interesting stuff there. Again, I'm kind of curious why they're starting in like April, and the only thing that's coming out in the actual month um, of Superman the movie's release is this child's graphic novel. But I don't know, whatever. I mean, it's more like Spring of Superman, but whatever. Uh, yeah, so moving on to some Marvel stuff that's coming out. So, surprise, surprise, Marvel is rebooting the Amazing Spider Man series again. They kind of do this like every few years. And as someone who's been collecting the Amazing Spider Man books, both old and new, since I was like 6, it's kind of a lot to like keep up with, all these rebooted Amazing Spider Man series. But this is going to be written by Joe Kelly, who is currently wrapping up the most recent Amazing Spider-Man run that started with Zeb Wells, and the art's going to be by Pepe Larraz and John Romita Jr. This first issue of the rebooted Amazing Spider-Man series is on sale on April 9th. And yeah, I'm curious to see what they're gonna do with Spider-Man with this. I know like the Zeb Wells run was pretty controversial. I think there was some really great highs and some pretty not so great lows of Zeb Wells' run overall. But to be honest, I enjoyed it. That being said, I do kind of feel like there's a bit of Spider-Man fatigue in the fan base, including with myself. And I don't mean we're sick of Spider-Man, but we're kind of tired of what Marvel's been doing with Spider-Man. Like I like some of it, but at the same time, they're kind of simultaneously keeping him where he like kind of keeping him static, not letting him really grow as a character very much, and yet they're kind of just changing things around him. Like they won't just let him be with Mary Jane. She's like whenever they're together longer than like a few years in the comics, they have to break up for some reason. And he hasn't really been doing anything all that new job wise, and I haven't read it recently, but I think one of the big things I really liked about Zeb Wells' run was the more street level aspect, and how like Tombstone and like gang wars and all this kind of stuff was kind of the main focus of a lot of his run. So I did like that, but I'm curious what they're going to do going forward, if they can actually make Spider-Man do something interesting with him, without just kind of like doing the same like rinse repeat kind of cycle. I haven't been reading Joe Kelly's current Spider-Man books that are like the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, I think. I haven't. I honestly haven't read it since a little before Zeb Wells, the end of his run. But I do look forward to this. I'm definitely going to at least pick up the first few issues and see if it's any good and see if they can do some interesting stuff. Another thing that's been kind of annoying me about Marvel with Spider-Man is there hasn't really been a whole lot of cohesion with the different series. And this isn't necessarily unique to Spider-Man, but there's like a lot of Spider-Man comics that come out at the same time. Like there's a Spider-Man Miles Morales comic going on for a while in like 2022, 2023. There was a Spider-Man series by Dan Slott, like at the end of the Spider-Verse, and then moved into like a Superior Spider-Man relaunch. And they just never seem to actually like meld together with the Amazing Spider-Man or any other Spider-Man series. They all just kind of seem to be their own thing, even though they're all supposed to be canon. I think none of them really seem to have any sort of knowledge of each other. And it's just kind of weird. It's almost like having three different versions of Spider-Man at the same time, even though I'm pretty sure they're all supposed to be 616. Yeah, so that being said, Ultimate Spider-Man is probably the best Spider-Man book that's been coming out the last few years. It's very it's self-contained. It's only one series. It's a new universe, so they can do a bunch of new stuff, and it's been really great for the most part. So, yeah, if you're a Spider-Man fan, definitely check out Ultimate Spider-Man. Not that Amazing Spider-Man has been terrible, in my opinion, but the next thing that Marvel's going to be doing is another Spider-Man thing: Spider-Verse versus Venomverse. Now they've been setting up the Venomverse the last couple years with like the Al Ewing's Venom run, and they did like these Venomverse like this one-shot series that kind of explored a few different Venom like alternate universe Venoms. So I guess they're going to be doing that, which like a bunch of different alternate universe Venoms versus a bunch of alternate universe Spider-Man. On paper, this sounds really kind of cool, but it could just be, like a kind of a sideshow attraction kind of special thing. But that's coming out, the first issue's coming out on May 14th. It's going to be written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom with art by Luciano Vecchio. And yeah, I'm curious about this. A little worried that it might just be, Matt, because I think a lot of the Marvel's really been pumping out a lot of like event series, like back to back almost the last couple years, and especially with Spider-Man and Venom, and only a few of them have really been that like noteworthy or good. I feel like a lot of them just been kind of meh. So I hope this is good. I hope it's not just like another like, oh, let's throw some other like random shit at them and see what sticks. Last little comic news I wanted to talk about is it's not a huge deal, but I thought it was pretty cool. So Daredevil number 20, which is the 20th issue in Saladin Ahmed's run, it's been going on the last almost 2 years now. It's going to bring back the black armor, Daredevil's black armor, and it's going to bring it back like in the current modern day. I know there was a Daredevil black armor series recently, but I'm pretty sure that was kind of like retelling some stories from the past of Daredevil or telling new stories set in the past, whereas this is bringing back the black armor in the modern day, which sounds really cool to me. This is starting a whole new arc as well for this run, and it's going to be coming out on April 9th. So I'm definitely going to be picking that up. I kind of fell off of this series a bit, not because I wasn't enjoying it, but because it's just been like impossible to keep up with all the new comics coming out, all the new series. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's all the comic news I had. Now just to rapid fire go through some of the new comics that have come out that came out this past week. Starting with Marvel, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. There's Amazing Spider-Man 66, Doctor Doom and Rocket Raccoon number 1. That's interesting. Fantastic Four 28, Helverine number 2, Iron Man number 4, Phoenix number 7, TVA number 2, Ultimate Spider-Man number 13, and I guess this is the introduction of the Picotech Black costume, which is going to be interesting. It says that it's the introduction of the Picotech Black costume Spider-Man, which is going to be Richard Parker, which I think is his son in the Ultimate Universe. I mean, that's the name of Spider-Man's dad, but yeah, interesting. Then there's the Uncanny X-Men number 9, and then Wolverine Revenge number 4, and this X-Men Xavier's Secret number 1 is new series. I don't really know anything about it. Next we have Absolute Wonder Woman number 4. I'm pretty sure Absolute Wonder Woman number 1, like a third printing, came out recently, but that might have been last week. Then there's Black Canary Best of the Best number 3, Catwoman 72, Detective Comics 1093, The Flash number 17, Green Arrow number 20, and this is a key issue. It's the first cover appearance of the Freshwater Killer. I don't know who that is. And there's Justice League Unlimited at number 3, which is a really cool series so far. There's Power Girl number 17, Superman number 22, and Wonder Woman number 17. Now, hitting a few of the image highlights, there's Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger number 2, that's Gunslinger Spawn, G.I. Joe number 313, King Spawn number 41, Rat City number 10, Savage Dragon 275. I can't tell if this is like a facsimile or if it's an actual. I'm guessing it's a new one. And then there's World Tree number 12. So that's all the new comics that I wanted to highlight here. Let's get into the actual book, the actual thing I'm covering this week. So Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo is written by Marc Silvestri, who is one of the 7 founders of Image Comics, and he is the current CEO. And he's known for doing the art for X-Men and Wolverine comics in the 80s and 90s. He's also started his own company, Top Cow Productions, which is a partner of Image Comics. And for Top Cow and Image, he's also been behind the properties Cyberforce, Witchblade, and The Darkness. And yeah, he just done a ton of art for a lot of mostly X-Men books. But yeah, but then he's doing this Batman and Joker book for DC, which is really cool. And what really drew me to this book is, for one thing, it's a DC Black Label book. So it's going to be like outside of the main continuity, and it kind of gives the artist and the writer more freedom to be more like adult-centered. So I thought that was cool. I also just thought the concept of Batman and the Joker teaming up sounded really interesting. So I've been meaning to read this book for a couple years now, but finally got around to it. And yeah, I hope you're going to enjoy this as much as I did. Now, if you'd like to skip the book summary and just get to my review or the rest of the episode, you can go ahead and use the time codes of the chapters in both the YouTube and the podcast audio versions. You can skip around to any part of the episode. So yeah, let's get into the book info here. So this book was written by Marc Silvestri, with art and inks also by Marc Silvestri. The colorist was Arif Prianto, and the letterer was Troy Peteri. This book is a 7-issue miniseries published from November 2022 to May 2023. And as usual, it was, collected into like a deluxe edition graphic novel, which is what I ended up reading it as. Yeah, let's get into the book here. Let's get into the story breakdown. I'm gonna try and just hit like the Cliff Notes version, because it is 7 issues. It is a bit long, and I don't know about you, but I don't really want to listen to myself prattle on for like 40 minutes going into every detail of this book. So yeah, I'm just gonna hit the highlights here, and hopefully that's sufficient for you to get an idea. And obviously there's going to be spoilers for this, so if you haven't read this book and you care about spoilers, I would suggest, well, probably like going and reading the book, because I'm probably going to be talking about spoilers in the review. But if you just want to like skip the summary spoilers, I would do that now. All right, so the story opens with Harley Quinn trapped in some underground cavern with a bunch of wooden rubble around her, and she's being taunted by her captor, who has all we see of them is this red eye with like these purple like vein-like markings spidering out from this eye. Next, we see Batman and Harvey Bullock at a crime scene where a man was murdered, a former police officer was murdered. The murderer was actually shot in the head by the victim, but still managed to get away. But Batman is able to collect a sample of the murderer's DNA, and it seems like whoever the murderer is trying to make the crime look like the Joker's fault, because they leave like "ha ha ha" written in blood on the wall of the crime scene. So, on his way back to the Batcave, Batman runs into the murderer who was carrying the head of the victim, and it's like this weird, like, Joker monster thing, and it's got, like, sharp teeth and looking, like, nasty as hell. Batman leaps out of the Batmobile to fight it, but the thing is insanely strong and nearly kills him, completely overpowers Batman. He uses his drones to shock the monster and incapacitate it, but then the GCPD SWAT team shows up and gets in Batman's way, stops him from capturing the monster, which gives the monster time to recover, and he kills one of the SWAT team members and runs away. Back at the Batcave, Bruce has his wounds fixed up and bandaged by Alfred, and Alfred tries to get Batman to attend to this emergency meeting of the Wayne Sims Foundation, which is this foundation put in place to help victims of, like, collateral damage caused by Batman and the GCPD fighting all these supervillains. Bruce says he doesn't have time for it and needs to keep working on the case, and he runs a test on the tissue sample he found at the crime scene, and it turns out that there's DNA of both the Joker and a dead homeless man. So he's very curious about what's going on with that, but then the bat signal shines in the sky, so he goes to GCPD, arrives on the roof. He sees this box left for him by somebody marked J, seemingly the Joker, and inside is an appendix which says property of Jim Gordon. Then Joker appears behind him, and he explains to Batman that he needs his help with a problem. He explains that someone stole something from him and is forcing him to do their bidding, and he needs Batman to help him take this person down. And Batman tries to get Joker to tell him where Gordon is, but Joker says he doesn't know who, like, he had somebody take Gordon and not tell him where he is, but they're gonna keep, like, mailing parts of him, until Batman fully helps Joker. While this is going on, a bunch of these Joker monsters are hiding out on the rooftops, and there's obviously quite a few of them, and they're all ugly as sin. So Joker and Batman come to a begrudging agreement to work together to help Joker and ultimately for Batman to save Gordon. But then they're attacked by these Joker monsters. But then we cut to a kidnapped Jim Gordon. He's chained to a bed in some abandoned warehouse somewhere. And there's this doctor who's being forced to operate on him. He took out his appendix, and now he's going to do other stuff to him because his family's being held at knife point by one of Joker's cronies. So then we cut to Batman and Joker being attacked by the Joker monsters on the rooftops, and Batman and Joker are able to fight them off a bit and then narrowly escape, but Batman gets pretty badly injured. He gets a big hunk of his shoulder bitten off. So he takes Joker, puts him in the Batmobile, and they he uses the Batmobile's autopilot to drive to the Batcave, uses some special protocol to strap Joker to the chair. So when Batman wakes up in the Batcave, his wounds have been tended to by by Dick and Alfred, and they actually pulled out one of the monster's teeth out of his shoulder. Once Bruce recovers enough, he and Dick and Alfred let Joker out of the Batmobile, and they tie him up and put, like, a mask over his head so that he can't, like, see anything or know their identities. And Batman he uses his computer to examine the tooth and the tissue sample that came along with it, and it turns out that the molecules, or the tissue, is like a mix of organic and inorganic. It's a mix of living cells bonded together with carbon fiber, and that allows the cells to regenerate incredibly fast. And Bruce reveals that he has come across some very similar research to this at his colleague Donald Sims' company. And Donald Sims is the Sims in the Wayne Sims Foundation. So the next day, Bruce sends Dick to go to the emergency meeting of the Wayne Sims Foundation, and we meet Donald Sims for the first time, who has an eye patch. We don't know why yet. And then we see Batman, who is called by Harvey Bullock to the roof of GCPD, and there has been another murder, and a box with a finger has been sent to GCPD, and Batman reveals that it's Jim Gordon's finger. Next, Batman, who has confiscated a cell phone that was given to the Joker by whoever is after him, sees a text giving him directions to the old Wayne recycling plant. So he goes there. There's, like a typical, like, in Saw fashion, there's like, a trap. Batman's locked inside the recycling plant, and there's a voice over the loudspeaker saying that Joker was supposed to be the one to come there, and the whole thing is there for him to like make some like sick choice and like figure out which one of these two people should die. And they have a son as well, and he's basically gonna this person whoever this person is going to kill all three of them if Batman can't decide which one of the parents should die. And Batman does figure it out. But meanwhile, in the Batcave, the tooth from the monster is seemingly regenerating and growing inside the test tube and starts to break free. So Batman, he solves the riddle he's supposed to solve to save everyone, but the person kind of goes back on their word because the Joker didn't show up, so they kill both the parents but leave the boy alive, and lets Batman go. So back at the Batcave, Batman finds out that the tooth had like regenerated to the point where it was just like a sentient blob that went and bonded with a bat. So now it's this weird like bat Joker monster. But they also figure out that when the tissue like melds with another creature, it like picks up some of its memories and some of its personality traits. Also, if it doesn't feed a lot, it starts to kind of feed on itself, and it starts like the cells start to feed on whatever like host body is in there. So that's fun. Then we see one of those Joker monsters with another head, another victim, and we see that these monsters have been putting the severed heads of their victims onto these spikes and onto these fake bodies dressed in tuxedos. The next day, Bruce confronts Donald Sims about the quote-unquote cancer research he'd been doing that was involved with those regenerative cells, and Donald Sims like all but admits that he's been doing some stuff behind the scenes to take out the Joker, because he blames the Joker, Batman, and the police department for the death of his daughter. And we don't really know what that means yet, but that night Bruce is at home and he gets a call, or not a call, he gets a text on Joker's phone to go catch a train with Joker. So he takes Joker, he releases him, but keeps an eye on him and keeps him in chains. Meanwhile, Donald Sims takes off his eye patch and we see the messed up red and purple eye, which, reveals that he's the bad guy. And we get a flashback to the day his daughter died, pre-losing his eye. It was his daughter's wedding, and everything was going fine and dandy until Joker and his gang burst into the church while they were in an armored car, in an armored bank truck, while they were running away from the police. And Joker pops out and he starts killing hostages, starting with the groom, Amanda's fiance, and starts making demands to the police. But Batman shows up and tells Gordon and the police to stand down while he goes in and tries to save everybody, and that he does. But things don't go too well because Donald Sims accidentally gets shot in the eye, and the SWAT team goes in against Gordon's orders and just kind of barges in, but sets off these traps that Joker set, which were explosives. So back to the present, we go back to Harley Quinn, who's still imprisoned by, the bad guy, Donald Sims. And Sims tells Harley to put on this clothing for this big event that's coming up. And, she needs to look all nice and pretty. So cut back to the train. This Sims tells Batman that they need to, if they want to save everybody on this train, because they're having this big wedding on the train, and they need to get the train down to its weight when it's empty, which obviously it isn't because there's a bunch of people on it. And there are weight sensors in the tracks, and basically if it's too heavy, the weight sensors are going to switch the tracks and send the speeding train into the station, killing everybody on the train and like most of the people in the station. So Batman needs to decide if he can, how to make the train weigh less. So he and Joker get to work and they enlist the people on there to start breaking apart the train, which luckily is made mostly of wood. So they just start throwing all the seats out and breaking the wood off and throwing it out, but it's still not quite good enough yet. Meanwhile, Batman had sent Nightwing and Catwoman to go hack into Simtech's records and get more information on the experiments Sim had been doing with the regenerative, like, carbon fiber tissue. And so that's what they do. Back to the train. Batman has an idea to, like, burn up the train to hopefully burn all the wood away, so that would greatly reduce the weight, but it's still not making the train lighter fast enough. So Joker makes an executive decision and throws out a few people off the train, and Batman gets really mad at Joker and, you know, threatens to hurt him, but turns out that it was just enough to get the weight down light enough to save everybody else. So, you know, in a way, Joker did kind of save everybody else, but he also killed people to do it, so, you know, typical Joker. Back at the cave, Batman he debriefs with Nightwing about the information that he found, and Batman figures out that the regenerative cells were so strong even dead tissues were restored, including, like, organs and stuff, and they basically were experimenting on these cancer patients that they lied to. They didn't know they were doing this really experimental stuff. And it turns out one of the patients that quote-unquote volunteered was Sim's daughter, Amanda. So Batman goes to Amanda Sim's grave and has the cemetery worker dig up Amanda's grave, and it is empty. The casket has been broken, and Amanda's body's no longer in there. Back at GCPD headquarters, Harvey Bullock is given another box, and this time it has Jim Gordon's eye in it. So, yeah, things aren't going well for old Gordon there. Harvey talks with Batman, and Batman tells Harvey that Sims is going after all the people that he blames for Amanda's death, and that includes the leader of SWAT, named Bennett. So Harvey leaves some police officers there to guard Bennett, but Bennett isn't really taking it seriously. He won't go down to the station. He thinks he can take care of himself, but no sooner has Harvey left than one of the monsters shows up and kills Bennett. So yeah, good job there, Bennett. Batman then goes to the old cathedral where the wedding happened and where Amanda died, and he relives what happened. We see again, you know, the SWAT team showing up, kind of ruining things, and the explosion causes the whole cathedral, the whole church to collapse. And Batman's able to get a bunch of people into the armored car, but he isn't able to. Amanda runs away from him to try and save her dad, so Batman has to try and save both Amanda and Donald. And luckily there were these tunnels underneath the church, so they're able to, like, fall into the tunnels instead of getting crushed. But unfortunately, Batman's only able to save Donald, and Amanda gets crushed and dies. But while Batman's remembering this, he sees one of the Joker monsters going into the tunnels underneath the church, so he fires a tracer on the monster and then lets it go to follow it later. Back at the Batcave, Barbara Gordon starts beating the crap out of Joker to try and get information on where Gordon is, where her dad is, but Joker doesn't know, so it kind of comes to nothing. And later, Barbara confronts Bruce, saying she you know, he's not doing enough, and Bruce is saying, like, Gordon's being used as bait. He's doing everything he can to get, you know, her dad back, but, you know, he can't just, like, rush in there and try and find him. He might end up getting him killed, and he needs the Joker's help, so, you know, Barbara slapping him around, it isn't really helping anybody. Seeing Jim Gordon again, he's still chained to a bed in some abandoned warehouse, and the doctor that's been forced to operate on him says that, you know, he doesn't know how much longer he can do this, and it turns out that the doctor gouged out his own eye to save Gordon from having to have his taken out. So the eye that was sent to Bullock was actually the doctor's. So for the grand finale, Batman's gonna follow the tracer down into the tunnels underneath the cathedral, and he gives Joker this, like, special super suit, which Joker's kind of excited about. So they go down into the tunnels, and they're met with a bunch of, like, hatchling Joker monster things. And when they finally get to where the tracer leads them, they see a really ghoulish and macabre recreation of Amanda's wedding. All the people that have been murdered and their heads taken off are, their heads are there on fake bodies to simulate, the actual guests at the wedding. And then Harley shows up. She's been kind of released, for this event, and she, is reunited with Joker. And we see Donald Sims sitting on the pews, and it doesn't look like he is in charge of this. And turns out it's actually a resurrected Amanda who's been affected by these, those predator cell things that, regenerate the half synthetic cells, and she's a completely different creature now. And it turns out she's been behind everything. And Jim Gordon is at this mock wedding as well. So it's not really clear whether the Joker brought him there. It seems more like Amanda did, so was Amanda the one that held him the whole time? It's not really clear. Amanda explains kind of what happened. After she died, she had these cells. She was basically resurrected by the regenerative cells that her dad had experimented on her with. And because of, the cells, and when she was crawling out, some genetic material from a lot of the, bodies in the soil got mixed with, her and the predator cell things, and she was able to absorb the DNA and the memories of a lot of people. That included researchers and scientists, and I guess that gave her the ability to use her dad's research to make her own army of these, creatures with the Joker's DNA and those special cells his company made. And, it turns out this whole time this has really just been some big, revenge thing to kind of punish everybody that was responsible for the death of, her death and the death of her soon-to-be husband. Joker then also makes a statement where it seems like he was actually kind of in cahoots with Amanda the whole time, saying that they had a bargain, and everyone's kind of surprised by that. But then Amanda slaps him around and tells him to go to hell, basically. And she holds up this key wrapped around her neck that I guess is what Joker wanted. And then Amanda proceeds to kill and behead her own father, so that's nice. Then Batman breaks free of his bonds and starts to fight the monsters and Amanda, and Joker helps him by throwing him his confiscated utility belt. The belt had been confiscated by Amanda, and Batman activates this thing on Joker's suit, which is actually something he invented that it's this chemical that accelerates the cannibalization factor of the cells, so they start to kind of eat themselves. So a lot of the monsters start to deteriorate, and Batman gives Jim Gordon a gun that fires that stuff too. So Batman then takes on Amanda one-on-one, but it doesn't go too well because she can just regenerate. But then Jim shoots her, which kind of debilitates her, at least slightly. And then Batman and Joker and everybody continue to fight all these Joker monsters. It's a huge mob. But Batman says that he's going to hold them off while Joker, Harley, and Jim escape further into the tunnel. So that's what they do. And surprise, surprise, Joker and Harley betray Gordon and knock him out. So when Batman escapes from the monsters and gets to them further in the tunnels, Joker tries to bargain for the key that Amanda had, which he saw Batman grab that, and he's gonna say, he says he's gonna kill Gordon unless he hands the key over to Joker. Instead, Batman puts the key on his own neck and says, "Come and get it." And there's this really badass hand-to-hand combat fight between Joker and Batman, and unsurprisingly, Batman ends up overpowering Joker. But then they get swarmed again by the monsters and Amanda, and things again don't seem like they're going too well. They all get captured. But then Batman's final plan, I don't know, C at this point, kicks into effect, where apparently earlier he and Joker had set a bunch of these explosives on the foundations deep in the cave. So now these explosions go off and break through the Gotham seawall. So now the tunnels are getting flooded. So this takes out Amanda and all her monsters, but Joker and Harley Quinn and Jim and Batman manage to get to high ground. Batman tries to save Joker and Harley, but Joker refuses the help, and it turns out he was able to rip the key off of Batman's neck right before he and Harley get swept away by the water. Jim then is able to save Batman, and they both get out of the tunnels. Once Jim is safe, Batman initiates this protocol, and he calls Alfred to initiate a protocol because Amanda had whispered something to him right before the fight, saying that she knew that he was Mr. Wayne, and Batman puts two and two together that what Joker bargained for was information on his secret identity. So now this initiative that, or this protocol that Batman is asking Alfred to initiate is basically just to protect all of his associates, to put them in protective custody in case somebody ever found out he was Batman, which Joker now did, because Joker, like, pretty much the next day, his bank is broken into, but only one safe deposit box has been opened, seemingly with that key Amanda had, and that probably held information on who Batman is. So some time passes, nothing really seems to happen. But then Batman gets another box from Joker, and in it is a phone, and on the phone is a recording, and Joker explains that he wasn't bargaining for information on Batman's identity. Actually, Amanda was kind of blackmailing him, telling him she was going to reveal who Batman is to the world if Joker didn't cooperate, and Joker didn't want that. He doesn't want to know who Batman is. He wants him to just be Batman, so he wanted to get his hands on the evidence so he could destroy it, and he even went so far as to kill his own minions that had, destroyed the info and who probably saw it. So he straps them to a bomb and kills them, and we see this on the video. And then Joker says, he's going to be around eventually, but, just for now, Batman knows that his secret is safe. So as the story winds down, Bruce is seen giving a speech at the Wayne Sims Foundation, like a fundraiser event, but it's not called the Wayne Sims, it's just the Wayne Foundation now because, of the Donald Sims misconduct. But the foundation is now expanding to find new homes for people and provide financial aid for each child's education that's been affected by all the stuff in Gotham. And yeah, so, and he also added Barbara Gordon, Jim Gordon, and the doctor Carl Weir that had been forced to operate on Jim to the board. And yeah, Batman Bruce that is meets with the boy that he saved earlier, who his parents had been killed, but the kid's happy that Batman saved him. And as the story ends, Batman opens a drawing that the boy had given him, that said thanks Batman, and he's reinvigorated, rejuvenated, something for his mission as Batman. So he swings off, and then we see Amanda is actually still alive, and she's basically doing this vigilante shit now, and she is basically saying she's gonna leave Batman alone for now, but as soon as what he does isn't working, she's gonna be there to stop him, put him down. But for now, she's gonna inflict her own brand of justice on Gotham, which, of course means killing people. And that's how the story ends. Okay, so Batman and the Joker, a deadly duo. Quite a story. As usual, kind of good and bad stuff here, but overall, I did really enjoy it. I thought really, Marc Silvestri's art was a highlight for me. I really like the way he draws Batman. I really like that his art looks like it's pencil drawn. I'm assuming it's probably not. Most modern comics aren't nowadays, but I really like the way it's kind of got that pencil shaded look, and I really just like the way he uses shading, and I really like the way he uses angles. It just makes everything look really striking. And I really like the way he draws Batman and the cowl, the way he draws his cowl in some frames. It reminds me a lot of Jim Lee's Batman, the way he draws Batman's cowl. I think the only thing I didn't like about this design was the black belt. I definitely think, for me, Batman without a yellow belt, I'm not a huge fan in general. Also, he didn't use the trunks in this, which I'm kind of on the fence with trunks. I'm not always it needs to be trunks, but I think in general in the comics it looks better, or the costume looks better with trunks. But I think honestly it's mostly the black belt, and also I don't really love that there's a bat symbol on as the belt buckle, but I'm being nitpicky here. I thought this story was really engrossing and interesting. I like that it started out as kind of a murder mystery. I kind of wish they had. I kind of wish Mark had kind of followed that thread a little longer. I think after, like a couple murders, it would just kind of onto this like, action adventure type thing. But though it did kind of feel like a, I don't know, like a one of those stories like Seven or something where the murderer is playing with the detective. So I did like that aspect. I thought that was pretty cool. I will say the story I felt got a little bogged down with too many like plot threads and like characters and misdirects that ultimately just kind of it was hard to tell how they all fit together. Like so there were some things that just kind of like dropped, like who really kidnapped Gordon. I felt like that was kind of nebulous. I kind of felt that, like at first it seemed like Joker kidnapped him, but then at the end of the story, Amanda like pulls Gordon out, like brings him to the ceremony. So I'm kind of curious, like if she was the one holding Gordon captive, or if it was Joker. Maybe I missed something, but I think they. It also seemed kind of unexplained how Amanda used Joker's DNA to make her monsters and like why she did it. I don't think she ever explained that. So I thought that was kind of a plot hole there. Again, maybe I missed something. Let me know in the comments if I totally missed something. I do think that the dynamic between Batman and the Joker as teammates was really fun, and that's kind of, the main draw of the book. But I feel like it could have been explored a little more. I think there were a couple good scenes, like the train scene was really good, and the scene where Batman and Joker were fighting the monsters on the roof, and at the in the end, like climactic battle when Joker like threw Batman his utility belt, like the stuff of them working together, it was kind of few and far between considering the whole book is called Batman and the Joker Deadly Duo. I don't know. Like I thought the moments that they worked together were fun and like we're like, oh yeah, this is great. But then it kind of left you wanting more, not in a good way. And I think they could have done a little more. Like I feel like the Batman Telltale series. There's in season 2. There's this section where you play as Batman, obviously, and you kind of team up with Joker, and Joker's kind of like your partner, and he's also a vigilante. I feel like they could have done something along those lines that would have been interesting. Just kind of like dragged it out a little more, but in a good way, uh, but that's just my opinion. Amanda showing up as the actual villain, and having like Donald be a misdirect villain, I think was interesting because like right on its face when they were making it seem like Donald was the villain with like his purple eye and everything, I was thinking like, oh, so they're just I guess revealing that Donald's the bad guy now. Like it seems so obvious. I felt like it was maybe just lazy writing, to be honest with you. Sorry, Mark, I underestimated you, but then having Amanda be the actual villain, I thought was cool, and having her be like some, monster now, I guess, was kind of interesting. But I think Amanda could have been developed a little more. All we really saw of her was, flashbacks to the wedding. I think it would have been nice if they had given more development for her and maybe had some like scenes with her and her dad or something, or even just shown him experimenting on her. I think that would have fleshed out her character a little more. I did think the ending was really good, especially with Joker, not wanting to know Batman's secret identity. I think is kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny that Batman was so like afraid. Oh no, the Joker knows my identity, and then it turns out that the Joker didn't even want to know at all. And I think Joker going to such like great length to not know Batman's identity, and that Amanda used it as like a threat. Like if you don't do what I want, I'm gonna release Batman's identity. I think that really just works really well for Joker's character because he doesn't give a shit who Batman is. Batman is like his foil, but in like, like they've done this in so many other media, The Dark Knight and a bunch of, animated projects, but like in a way, Batman and Joker kind of complete each other in a really, messed up, weird, toxic way. So I think that really worked well for Joker's character and the dynamic between them. So I thought that was a good ending. I liked that. And last thing, Amanda being a vigilante at the end was definitely an interesting turn. I felt like it was a bit out of left field, to be honest with you. Um, and to be honest, I felt a little like it felt like it was building up to like some sort of sequel, like I'm going to be here to clean up your mess, Batman. But it felt like it was setting up a sequel, but there's no sequel planned or anything. So I didn't really get the point of that necessarily. I don't necessarily dislike it, but it felt a little bit like, what was the point, I guess. I guess that's just so that show that she's alive, and I guess she's not necessary. I mean, I guess she's kind of on a murderous rampage, but she's killing criminals now instead of just on a vendetta, a path of vengeance. So interesting, I guess. But yeah, overall, I did really enjoy this book. I found it really engrossing. Like I said, the art was spectacular. I would say I'd probably give it like a if I was to rate it, I'd probably give it a 7.5. I think that's fair. I think it was good, but not great. Like the problems that think it had probably kept it from being great. Kind of kept it from being like, this amazing classic. But that being said, it is worth a read. It is really fun. So if you watch this and you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend reading it. I'm sure you can read it on the DC Infinite app if you have that, but you can also pick up a copy of the graphic novel with the link below. I have an Amazon link below if you want to buy your own copy. But yeah, that's it for me for Batman and the Joker, A Deadly Duo. As usual, let me know in the comments what you think of this book. Do you agree with my review? Do you not? Do you think this is amazing? Do you think it's shit? Let me know. So to wrap things up, we're going to be going over my cultured pick for this week. Now, this is going to be the Long Halloween Special, which is a one-shot that came out in 2021, and then it was reprinted as The Last Halloween issue 0, like a prologue issue. So this was the last team up between Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale before Tim Sale unfortunately passed away. And if you're not aware, they worked on all the other like Batman Long Halloween books, and the Long Halloween, Dark Victory, the Catwoman one, I forget what it's called. So they teamed up with this, and they were planning on making a final chapter, The Last Halloween. And even though it was called the Long Halloween Special, this was always meant to be a prologue to that. But unfortunately, Tim Sale died before they could make it. However, Jeff Loeb still did go on to make The Last Halloween, and they're currently on their like fourth or fifth issue with that series right now. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but this special is really cool. Not only just because it's Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb teaming up for the last time, but it's actually a really interesting story. It really, it is very much following the Long Halloween, and there's going to be some like mild spoilers here, but like Harvey Dent's wife Gilda shows up, and that causes complications because big spoilers here, but Gilda was the holiday killer in the Long Halloween. So Calendar Man knows this, and he takes that personally because he's like, holidays were my thing, and you stole that. So there's an interesting team up between Two-Face and Batman, and it was honestly just like really a really cool one shot, and it was really fun because it introduced a lot of new stuff, but it was also very self-contained, but it set up the Last Halloween really well. So I'm looking forward to reading The Last Halloween in its entirety when it comes out. So yeah, that's my cultured pick, and that is the episode, everyone. Thank you so much for watching or listening if you are listening on Spotify or Apple or whatever. Thank you, and if you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can check out the patreon.com/theculturednerd. If you want to support me and the Cultured Pull List specifically, look for the Cultured Pull List specific tier on that Patreon page. Thank you again so much. Please be sure to like and subscribe and share this show and tell your friends about it if you really like it and you want to share it with your friends. Please do. If you'd like to check out the Cultured Nerd or the Cultured Pull List on social media, and you're watching this at home, you can scan the QR code on the bottom left. If not, I'm going to leave a link in the description to all that. If you'd like to check out Casual Experts, which is my other brand where I talk all about Star Wars, Marvel, movies, TV, like all things pop culture and nerdy type stuff. If you want to check that out, I have a social media and podcast and YouTube channel. You can scan the QR code on the bottom right down there. And well, yeah, thank you again so much for watching. Be sure to stick around next week because I will be covering a Batman Hush, which is, one of the most iconic Batman stories ever. I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, until then, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and read some frickin' comic books.